Welcome to DSC1630 Introductory Financial Mathematics, May-June 2019, Department of Decision Sciences. So in this video we are going to cover May-June 2019 past exam paper, and we are going to cover from question number 1 to question number 10, so that our videos will be very short. So in this video we are going to cover question number 1 to question number 10. I do hope you also have a piece of paper, a pen and a calculator. So for the purpose of this video, we are going to use the HP financial calculator. Unfortunately, we didn't get the software for Sharp financial calculator, so we are only using our HP financial calculator. So I do hope that you also have the HP financial calculator. So let us go to question number 1. So question number 1, you invest an amount of 20,000 in a bank account earning 12% simple interest per year. The total amount in this bank account after 126 months is. So what is very important in financial mathematics? The first thing is to determine what you are required to calculate. From the scenario itself, it must be clear what you are required to calculate. So the question says the total amount in this bank account after 126 months. So after 126 months from today, what will be the amount in the bank account? So it means here we are required to calculate the future value or the sum accumulated. So we are required to calculate the future value. Then the second thing is to ask ourselves, how are we going to calculate the future value? So from the question itself, we must have a guideline. So in this case, they said 12% simple interest per year. So it means as long as they said simple interest per year, we are going to use our simple interest model. So unfortunately, with the simple interest, we cannot use our financial calculator, but we will only use a formula. So in the exam, you will be also given the formulas. So under simple interest, to determine our future value, we use this formula which says our S is equals to P in brackets 1 plus RT. That will be the formula which we use. So in the exam, this formula, it will be given as well, where our S here represents our future value or sum accumulated, and then the P here represents our present value or our principal. The principal simply refers to the original amount that was invested, and then our 1 here is a constant, and then our R here is our simple interest rate as a decimal. So here we have our simple interest rate as a decimal. I want to emphasize that as long as we use the formula, our R must be always as a decimal, and then our T here is the time in years. So our T is the time in years. I also want to emphasize that as long as we are using a formula, T must be the time in in years. So that is how do we interpret the variables. So since the question says the amount in the bank account after 126 months, it means we are required to calculate our future value or sum accumulated. So let us calculate our sum accumulated. So our S is equals to P. So P, we said the original amount invested or the present value. So our P or principal here is 20,000, since it is the amount that was invested in the bank account. So here we'll be having our 20,000, then we open our bracket, then we said 1 plus, then we said R is the simple interest rate as a decimal. So here we have earning 12% simple interest per year. So we have to convert our 12% to a decimal. So to convert a number to a decimal, we simply divide by 100. So to convert 12 to a decimal, we are simply saying 12 divided by 100, and then we have 0.12. Then we said multiplied by T, which is the time in years. So here we are given 126 months, but our T must be always in years. So to convert months into years, we simply divide by 12. So it means our T in years here, it will be 126 months divided by 12, and then we close our bracket. So we can now punch in the variables which we have here into our calculator. So let's us go to our HP financial calculator. So here we do have our HP financial calculator. So the first important thing on our calculator is to have 9 digits on our display screen. So how do we put 9 digits on our display screen? So let's say, for example, here I can put 1 digit there. For example, I can say down arrow, then display here, and then I said 1. For example, we have a situation like this here. Here we have 1 digit after the comma, but as we need 9 digits after the comma. So how do we enter our 9 digits after the comma? We make use of this what display on the equal sign. So since display here is in orange, to access everything in orange, we must start by pressing our down arrow. So here we say down arrow, then here we said display, and then here we press what? We press 9. So here we are now having 9 digits on our display screen. Then the other important thing as well is to make sure that our memory is clear. So how do we clear our memory? Our clear all here is on C. On the C button here on the left of 1, we have clear all. So clear all as well is in orange. So to access everything in orange, we must also start by pressing our down arrow. So here we say down arrow, then we press clear all. So our memory is clear. Then we can now go to punch in our variables. So with the HP financial calculator, our brackets are difficult to use. So the easiest way which we can do is to start inside the brackets. So inside our brackets as well, we must start by the fraction. So we have to say 126 divided by 12. Then we press equal sign. Then we have to multiply by 0.12, and then we also press our equal sign. Then after that we say plus 1. Then we also press our equal sign. Then after that we multiply by 20,000. So let us go there. So we are starting by saying 126. Then we said divided by 12. Then we press equal sign. Then we said multiply by 0.12. 2. Then we press our equal sign. Then after that we said plus 1, and then we said equal. So we are done by the items inside the brackets. Then brackets indicate multiplication. So we are now saying multiply by 20,000. 20,000. Then we press equal sign. So our sum accumulated is 45,200, meaning to say 126 months from now you will be having 45,200 in your bank account. So our correct option here is option number 2. So our correct option is option number 2. So that is how we do. So as long as they are saying at a simple interest rate of, then we know that we cannot use our financial calculator, but we have to use the formula. So as we go, we shall also cover situations where we might be required to calculate P, where we might be required to calculate R, or where we might be required to calculate T under simple interest. So our correct option is option number 2. So let's go to question number 2. So question number 2 says, Lerato took a student loan to help pay for her last years of university and received 12,600. She had to repay 15,000 after 2 years. The simple discount rate applicable per year was. So Lerato took a student loan to help pay for her last years of university and received 12,600. She had to repay 15,000 after 2 years. The simple discount rate applicable per year was. So the first thing as well, we need to determine what we are required to calculate. So the question requires us to calculate the simple discount rate applicable per year. That is how we are required to calculate. Then the second question is, how are we going to calculate the simple discount rate? So from the question itself, we must have a guideline. So if you still remember from question number 1, we said that as long as they said at a simple interest rate of, we are going to use the simple interest model. And then on this question, they are saying the simple discount rate. So as long as they are saying the simple discount rate as well, we are going to use our simple discount model. So under simple discount as well, we cannot use our financial calculators, but we can only use a formula. So in the exam as well, you will be also given the formula. So under simple discount, the main formula which we have is our P is equals to S in brackets 1 minus D dt. This main formula, it will be given in the exam. This is the formula for calculating the present value or principal under the simple discount model. So we have our P is equals to S in brackets 1 minus dt, where our P here is our principal or present value, and our S here is our future value or sum accumulated. Future value and sum accumulated refers to the same thing. And then our D here is our simple discount rate as a decimal. So we have our D as our simple discount read as a decimal. As long as we are using a formula, this one must be as a decimal. And then our T here is the time in years. T is the time in years. So that is how do we interpret the variables. So from our question, we are required to calculate the simple discount rate. So we don't have a direct formula for calculating our simple discount rate. So we have to play around the given formula so that we can make D the subject of the formula. From this main formula, we have to derive a formula for D. So it means when deriving a formula for D, we are simply making D the subject of the formula. So let us make D the subject of the formula. So in the exam as well, the formula for D, the formula for T will not be given. So we have to play around the given formula. So the first thing to do here is to take S to this what? To the left hand side. So to take S to the left hand side, we simply need to divide both sides by S. So if we divide both sides by S, this S and this S will cancel each other. Then on our left we'll be having P divided by S is equals to 1 minus dt. So here we are only left with 1 minus dt. So what we need on our left hand side here is what is D. So we have to take this one to the left hand side, and then this one we take it to the right hand side. So this dt do have a negative sign. So when a negative sign jumps the equal sign, it will become positive. So there it means we will be having our dt then is equals to, this one will be there, and this P over S here is positive. So when it jumps the equal sign, it will become negative. So it will be minus P over S. But what we need on our left hand side is D only. So we have to divide here by T, then here we also divide by T, so that this T and T will cancel each other, and then our formula for D will be D is equals to, so we'll be having D is equals to 1 minus P over S divided by T. So that is how do we derive the formula for D. So now we can substitute into we can now substitute the given variables into our formula. So it means our D is equals to 1 minus our P, we said, is our present value or our principal. So Lerato took a student loan to help pay for her last year's of university and received 12,600. So the amount which Lerato received, which is our 12,600, is our principal. So it will be minus 12,600 then divided by the sum accumulated or future value. So she had to repay 15,000 after 2 years. So it means she will pay 15,000 2 years from now. So the amount that she will pay after 2 years will be our future value. So it means our S here is our 15,000. Then after that we said divided by T, which is the time in years. So in this case they said after 2 years. So it means our T is equals to what? Is equals to 2. So if you still remember, we said that on the formula D is always a what? Is a decimal. So here we will get a what? A decimal, but we need D as a percentage. So it means we have to multiply by by 100. So the answer which we get here, we have to multiply by 100 to express it as a percentage. So that is how we do. So let us now punch into our Sharp Financial calculator. So we always start by clearing our memory. So to clear our memory, here we said down arrow, and then we said clear all. So the easiest way, if we have a situation like this, here we'll start by saying 12,600 divided by 15,000. Then after that, we will put the answer a negative what? A negative sign, because here we have a negative sign. So it's 12,600 divided by 15,000. Then the answer which we have will be having a negative what? Sign. Then after that we say plus 1. This one is positive. Then we'll be saying plus 1. Then after that we will say divide by 2. So here we will say 12,600, and then we said divided by 15,000. We said divided by 15,000. Then we put a minus there, so that our answer would be having a negative. Then here we said is equals to. Then after that we are now saying plus 1. That one has a positive, so we are saying plus 1, and then here we said equals to. Then after that we are now saying divided by 2, and then we said is equals to 0.08. Then we need to multiply by 100 to express it as a percentage. Then we said is equals to. So it means our simple discount rate D is equals to 8%. So the reason why I said 12,600 divided by this one and put a negative is to try to save time in the exam, because here we can say 12,600 divided by 15,000. We can have a number which might be 0 point something something until to 9 digits. So in the exam we can save time by not writing that number on the paper. So we can simply say 12,600 divided by 15,000. Then after that we put it a negative sign. So our answer, it will be having a negative. So this one is a positive. So we'll be saying plus 1. Then after that we divide by 2. Then we multiply by 100. So that is how we do. So it is very, very important to know how to make D or T the subject of the formula. So our simple discount rate there is 8%. So our correct option is option number 3. So let's go to question number 3. So question 3, Mina invest her savings of 24,000 in an account that pays 7.5 interest per year, compounded monthly. The amount that she will have in her account after 3 years is. So the amount that she will have in her account after 3 years is. So as I emphasized as well from the beginning, the first thing is to determine what we are required to calculate. So the question says the amount that she will have in her account after 3 years is. After 3 years from now, what will be the amount in her account? After 3 years, what will be the amount in her account? So as long as they are talking of the future, it means we are required to calculate the future value. So here we are required to calculate the future value. That is the amount that will be in the account of Mina after 3 years. So we are required to calculate the future value. Then the second question is, how are we going to calculate the future value? So from the question or scenario itself, it must be clear how are we going to calculate. So in this case, I think you are seeing that they never mentioned anything to do with our simple interest. They never mentioned anything to do with our simple discount. So how are we going to calculate the future value? So in this case, they indicated that compounded. They indicated that compounded. So it means we also have another model which we use to calculate our future value. As long as they are saying compounded, we are using the compound interest model. Question number one, we use the simple interest model. Question number two, we use the simple discount model. So here they are now saying compounded, so it means we are using the compound interest model. So let us go to the question. So with the compound interest, we can use our financial calculators. That is the fortunate part of compound interest, or in other words, I can say under compound interest, 80 to 90% of the questions we can use our financial calculators. And I also need to emphasize from the beginning, under compound interest, we can have the investment of a single amount, or we can have an investment of a series of amounts. For example, you will be depositing a certain amount each and every year in your investment account. If you are depositing each and every year, we are no longer having the investment of a single amount, but we are having an investment of a series of amounts. So we need to differentiate between the investment of a single amount and the investment of a series of amounts. So in the investment of a series of amounts falls under our annuities. So as we go, we shall also cover annuities. So on question number 3, we are only dealing with investment of a single amount. Mina just invested 24,000 in an account. She never added other deposits before the end of the 3 years, but she just deposited the 24,000, left it there. No withdrawals were made, no additional deposits were made. So it means we are dealing with a single amount. So if we are dealing with our single amount, we can use our financial calculators. So on financial calculator, what I need to emphasize from the beginning is that we need to know which variables to enter. Once we determine that we are required to calculate our future value, how are we going to use now our financial calculator to enter the given variables? So I need to emphasize right from the beginning, before we start our bonds, as long as we are dealing with a compound interest, as long as we are dealing with annuities, before we touch our bonds, we need to enter 4 variables into our financial calculator so that we can determine the missing variable. So the missing variable, or the variable which we are required to calculate, I normally call it the 50 variable. So the variable which we are required to calculate, I normally call it the 50 variable. So it means with our financial calculators, we must enter 4 variables into our calculator so that we can determine the missing 50 variable. So before we go to our question as well, the variables which we will be playing around with, let me start with our future value. The first variable here is our future value. And we also know that you will be earning interest. For the purpose of our HP financial calculator, we use 1 over y for interest. And then the amount which you originally invested, we call it our present value. And then we also have what do we call P over Y, P over YR. P over YR represents the number of times interest is calculated or interest is compounded per annum. P over YR represents the number of times interest is calculated or interest is compounded per annum. So we also have what do we call our N. We also have what do we call N. So I also need to emphasize here, as long as interest is calculated more than once per annum, our N is no longer the number of years, but our N will be the total number of compounding periods for the whole investment period. So as long as interest is compounded or calculated more than 1 per annum, then our N is no longer the number of years, but it will be the total number of compounding periods per annum. So our N, it will be P over YR, which is number of compounding periods per annum multiplied by the number of years. That is how do we calculate our what? Our N. So our N, it will be P over YR, which is number of compounding periods per annum multiplied by the number of years. And then before we proceed, how do we enter as well these variables into our financial calculator? So before we start our question number 3, let us discuss the HP financial calculator a little bit as well. So here we are having future value. So our future value here is on this button, on this what? On this button with our F what? With our FV. So while this we are still on future value, future value is always entered as positive. When we are entering future value, we will always enter it as positive. So here we do have our future value. And then after that we have 1 over y, 1 over y, or here let me put an r as well. This one also have 1 over yr. So 1 over yr here represents our interest rate. So what is very important when we are using our financial calculator is that our interest rate, we enter it as it is. We don't enter it as a percentage, but we will enter it as it is. So for example, if we are given 10%, when we are punching in 1 over yr into the financial calculator, we simply enter 10 without a percentage. If we are using the financial calculator, we don't convert it to a decimal, but we enter it as it is. So here we have 1 over yr, which is our interest rate. And then from there we do have PV. So our PV here is our present value. So when entering present value into our calculator, we must always enter it as negative. So present value is always entered as negative. So to enter our present value as negative, we will make use of plus or minus. So to enter our PV as negative, we use plus or minus. So present value is always entered as negative. And then here we have P over YR. So P over YR is the number of times interest is compounded per annum. So our P over YR is in orange. It is here on PMT, but below this PMT. So here we have P over YR. So P over YR is in orange. So to access everything in orange, we must always start by pressing our down arrow. As we go, I will show you how. Then after that, here we are having our N. So here we have our N, and I emphasized that as long as interest is compounded more than 1 per annum, then our N, it will be number of compounding periods per annum multiplied by the number of years. So here are you seeing that we do have 5 variables. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 variables. So we will be playing around these variables. You might be required to calculate future value. You might be required to calculate 1 over YR. You might be required to calculate present value. You might be required to calculate P over YR, or you might be required to calculate what? N. So as I emphasized from the beginning, to calculate the 50 variable, for example, in question number 3, our 50 variable is future what? Future value. So we need 1 over YR, we need PV, we need P over YR, and we also need what? N. So it means we need 4 variables to calculate the missing 50 variables. So it is an important technique in financial mathematics. So as we go, we also add other techniques. So let us now go to our question. So let us determine the variables which are given on the question. So the question says the amount that she will have in her account after 3 years is. So it means we are required to calculate the future value. So let us go to the given variable. So we need 4 variables to calculate the missing 50 variable, which is our future value. So let us start from the beginning. So Mina invest her savings of 24,000. So the 24,000 which was invested here is our present what? Value. Present value is simply the amount that was originally invested, or the amount that was originally borrowed. So it means here we have our 24,000. So with our HP, we start by the amount, then after that we'll press our present value. So if you still remember, we said present value is always entered as negative. So once we press our 24,000, then we must press plus or minus to put a negative on our present value. Then after that, here we press present what? Present value. So another tip which I also want to give you, in the exam, write your variables first before you start to touch your calculator, or before you start to punch in certain variables into the calculator. Start by writing your variables, finish, then start to punch amounts in your calculator. So here we are having our first variable, which is our present value. And then in an account that pays 7.5 interest per year. So we have 7.5 interest per year, which is our 1 over YR. So if you still remember, I said we enter it as it is. So it means here we have 7.5, then we press 1 over YR. So we now have our second variable. And then they said compounded monthly. So if they are saying compounded monthly, it means that interest is calculated every month. So it means the number of times interest is calculated per year or per annum is 12, since we have 12 months in a year. So it means we have our P over YR. So we start by writing 12. So since on our calculator P over YR is in orange, after we press 12, then we have to press downward, down arrow. Since P over YR is in orange, then here we have P over YR. So we are now having 3 variables. So we are left with the fourth variable. So our fourth variable here is what? Is our n. So if you still remember, I said that n is equals to p over yr, where p over yr is the number of times interest is compounded per annum. So p over yr here is 12. So we are saying 12, then we said multiplied by number of years. So here they said after 3 years. So it means the number of years there is 3. Then we can say 12 multiplied by 3, and then here we get 30 what? 36. So here we now have our 4 variables. So we now need to determine our future value. So here we simply say press what? Press future value. Press future value. So that will be the first thing to do. So let us now go to our Sharp financial, our HP financial calculator. So here we start by clearing our memory. So to clear our memory, we just say down arrow, then here we press clear all. So our memory is clear. So we start by our 24,000. So we have 24,000 plus or minus. So here we must press plus or minus to put the negative on what? On the 24,000. Then after that we press our present value. Our present value is there. Then after that we said 7.5. Then we press 1 over yr. Then here we have 12, and then we said down arrow. Our down arrow is this one. Then down arrow, then we press p over yr. Then we said 36. Then we press n. Then after that we press our future value. So the future value here is 30,034. So we have 30,034 points. Since it is money, we can round it to 2 decimal places. So here we have 7. 7 is above 5. So 7 can change 0 to become 1. So it will be 7, 1. So it will be 30,034.71. So that is how we do it. So our correct option here, it will be option number 4. So as we go, we shall also add other tips and techniques to excel in the exam. So let us go to the next question, which is question number 4. So question number 4 says, if you earn a nominal interest rate of 16.5% per annum, compounded at the end of every second month on a savings account, then the effective interest rate is. The effective interest rate is. So here we are required to calculate the effective interest rate. So the question is, how are we going to calculate our effective interest? So fortunately as well, with effective interest, we can use our financial calculator. We can use our financial calculator to determine our effective interest. And effective interest is simple to calculate since we only need 2 variables. So to calculate our effective interest, we only need 2 variables, and the variables will be clear from the question. So to calculate our effective interest, we need our nominal we need our nominal interest. That is the first variable which we need to calculate our effective interest. And then the second variable which we need is P over YR. The second variable is P over YR. At this stage, I hope you now know what P over YR stands for. P over YR simply refers to the number of times interest is compounded or calculated per annum. And then NOM represents our nominal interest. So these are the two variables which we need to calculate our effective interest. So before we actually go to the question, let us explain on the HP financial calculator. So the first thing here, we'll start by clearing our memory. So here we have cleared our memory. So NOM is our nominal interest. So our nominal interest is on the 1 over YR button, but it is in orange. So it means to access everything in orange, we must start by pressing the down arrow. And our P over YR is also on the PMT button just below the PMT in white, and it is also in orange. So to access everything in orange, we must always start by pressing the down arrow. Then our effective interest, which will be our third variable, which is our EFF, is on the present value button. Our EFF is on the present value button, and it is also in orange. So to access it as well, we have to start by pressing the down arrow. So it means we need these two variables to calculate our effective interest. So let us now go to our question and see how do we enter in the given variables. So if you earn a nominal interest rate of 16.5%, so our nominal interest rate here, we are given 16.5. So to enter it, we will start by entering the number which is 16.5, and 16.5 we enter it as it is. We don't convert it to a decimal. So since our nominal interest button is in orange, we say 16.5, then we press down arrow, then after that we press nominal. Then after that we are also given the number of times interest is compounded per annum, which is our P over YR. So here they said compounded at the end of every second month. So if interest is compounded at the end of every second month, how many times interest is compounded per annum? Because our P over YR is the number of times interest is compounded per annum. So if it is after every second month, in general we can say after every 2 months. After every 2 months interest is compounded. So it means per annum interest is compounded 6 times. So here it will be 6. Then we said down arrow, then we press P over YR. So these are the only two variables which we need to calculate our effective interest. Then to determine our effective interest, since our EFF is in orange, we say down arrow, then here we said press down arrow, then press EFF, then we'll be able to determine our effective interest. So let us now go to our HP. So here we already cleared our memory. So we are saying 16.5. Then we said down arrow, then our nominal is here, then we press nominal. Then we said 6, then we said down arrow, then we press P over YR. Then to determine our EFF, we are now saying down arrow, then we press EFF. So it means our effective interest rate to 2 decimal places will be 17.68%. Here 6 is above 5, so 6 can change 7 to become 8, so it will be 17.68. so that is how we do. So our correct option will be option number 4. So we shall also meet the situation where we are required to calculate the nominal interest from the effective interest. It will be simple, the procedure will remain the same. Here we will start with our effective, then this one it will be always the same. We will enter our P over yr, then we say down arrow, then we press nominal. So let's go to question number 5. So Ruben borrowed 800 rand from Jackie 45 days ago at a simple interest rate of 14% per year. The amount he has to pay Jackie 120 days from now is. So Ruben borrowed 800 rand from Jackie 45 days ago at a simple interest rate of 14% per year. The amount he has to pay Jackie 120 days from now is. So what are we required to calculate? The amount that must be paid 120 days now is. So it means 120 days from now is our future. So it means we are simply required to calculate our future value. So we are required to calculate the future value. Then the question is, how are we going to calculate our future value? So if you still remember from question number 1, I said that as long as they are saying simple interest, as long as, so this one is an important guideline. In the exam we don't have time, so we have to quickly determine a guideline, a tip or a technique from the scenario. So as long as they are saying simple interest rate, it means we are using the simple interest model. So if you still remember from question number 1 as well, we said that the formula for the simple interest, or the main formula for the simple interest, will be given in the exam. So as long as they are saying simple interest, we are using this main formula, which says S is equals to P in brackets 1 plus RT. It will be given in the exam, but as an upcoming expert in financial mathematics, we have to remember these formulas because it will save time in the exam. Instead of paging to the last page of the question paper, you can simply write the formula on your question paper. So we said S represents the future value or sum accumulated, and then P represents our present value or our principal, and R represents the simple interest rate as a decimal, and then T represents the time in years. So here we are required to calculate our future value, so there is no need to play around the formula because the formula is straight. So here we said our S is equals to, so P present value, the amount that was originally borrowed, is our 800 rand. So it means here we'll be having our 800, then in brackets 1 plus our single discount rate as a decimal. So the single interest rate is 14%. So 14% as a decimal, we simply say 14 divided by 100, and then we have 0.14. Then we multiply by t. So we said t is always the time in years. So how are we going to determine our t? So here they said 120 days from now. So are we using 120 days as our t, or we are going back to the time when Ruwan borrowed the 800 rand from Jackie? Because here they are saying 120 days from now. So if they are saying now, for example, they are saying today, but the 800 rand was not borrowed today, but it was borrowed 45 days ago. So when we are calculating our future value, we don't start from today, because the amount was not borrowed today, but it was borrowed 45 days ago. So we have to go back to the 45 days, or from the starting point, or from the date on which the money was borrowed. So it means we have to go back by 45 days. So if we go back by 45 days, and then from today up to the payment date, we have 120 days. So it means our number of days over which the amount was borrowed would be 120 plus 45. So we are saying 120 plus 45, and then we do have 165 days. And then if you still remember, I said that t must be always in years. So 165 is days, but t must be always in years. So to convert days into years, we have to divide by 365. So to convert days into years, we are going to divide by 365. So that is how we do. So if you still remember as well, the easiest way is to start inside the brackets, and inside the brackets we must always start by the fraction. So say this one divided by this one, multiply by this one, then we add our 1. Then after that we multiply by 800. So let us go to our HP financial calculator. So the first thing here is to clear our memory. So our memory is clear. So we'll start inside the brackets, and we'll start by the fraction. So we are saying 165 divided by 365, and then we said equals to. Then we said multiply by 0.14, and then we said equals. Then we said plus 1, and then we said equals to. So inside the brackets we have this amount. Then we are now saying multiply by 800. Brackets means multiplication, and then we said is equals to. So it means the future value here, it will be 850.63. So that is how we do. So that is the amount that will be paid 120 days from now. So our correct option is option number 3. So let's go to question number 6. So question number 6 says an interest rate of 19.9% per year compounded quarterly is equivalent to a weekly compounded rate of an interest rate of 19.9% per year compounded quarterly is equivalent to a weekly compounded rate of. So here we are covering interest rate conversion. So what we are required to calculate here is the equivalent weekly compounded rate. We are given 19.9% per year, which is compounded quarterly. If we can change it to a weekly compounded rate, instead of compounding quarterly, we can compound it weekly. What will be the equivalent interest rate? So unfortunately, with interest rate conversion, we cannot use our financial calculators, but we can only use a formula. So the formula will also be given in the exam, and we have different formulas for interest rate conversion. So if we are converting from a compounding interest rate to another compound interest rate, we will use the following formula, and it will be given in the exam. So we have Jn is equals to, and then here we make use of big bracket, we open our small bracket, and then said 1 plus Jm over m, then close bracket to the power m over what? Over n. Then here we said minus what? Minus 1. So this formula, it will be given in the exam, is for converting one compound interest rate to another compound interest rate. So we have Jn is equals to, and then in brackets 1 plus Jm over m to the power m over what? Over n, then minus 1. So you might be wondering what is the meaning of these variables. So let us interpret the variables on our formula. So our Jn here is the interest rate to be determined, is the interest rate to be calculated. So in this case, we need to calculate the weekly compounded rate. So it means our Jn here is our weekly compounded rate. And then from there we do have our n here. So n here does not refers to the number of years, but n refers to the number of compounding periods per annum associated with Jn. So our n here is number of compounding periods per annum, number of compounding periods per annum, number of compounding periods per annum associated with Jn. So number of compounding periods per annum associated with Jn. So in this case, Jn is our weekly compounded rate. So the number of compounding periods per annum associated with Jn, it will be 52, because we have 52 weeks in a year. So if interest is compounded weekly, then it means we have 52 times of calculating interest per year. So our Jn is the number of compounding periods per annum associated with Jn. So in this case, we have 52, which is our n, and then from there we have our Jm. So Jm is the given interest rate, is the given annual interest rate. So is the given annual interest rate. So Jm is the given annual interest rate. So in this case, we are given 19.9%. So our 19.9% is our Jm, that is the given interest rate. and then from there we have our M. So M as well is the number of compounding periods per annum associated with JM. So our M here is the number of compounding periods per annum. Number of compounding periods per annum. Per annum associated with JM. Associated with JM. So it means JN and N, they go together. JM and M, they go together. So here we have M, and we know that our M is the number of compounding periods per annum associated with JM. So in this case, under JM, which is 19.9% per year, they said compounded quarterly. After every quarter, interest is compounded. After every quarter, interest is compounded. So it means we do have 4 quarters in a year. So it means our M here, it will be equals to what? Is equals to 4. So we now have all the variables which we need. We now have our N, we have our JM, and we also have our M. So this one is -1. So we can now substitute into our formula. So let me try to write on top. So our formula here is our JN is equals to N in brackets 1 plus JM over M, then to the power of M over N minus what? -1. So our JN is equals to, so our N here, number of compounding periods per annum associated with JN is 52, since interest is compounded weekly. So it means here we have our 52. Then we open the big bracket, then we open small bracket, then we said 1 plus our JM is the given interest rate. So as long as we are using a formula, our interest rate must be entered as a decimal. It is very, very important. As long as we are using a formula, our interest rate, we will enter it as a decimal. So 19.9% as a decimal will be simply 19.9 divided by 100, and then we have 0.199. Then we say divided by M, where our M is the number of compounding periods per annum associated with our JM. So here they are saying compounded quarterly. So it means our M here, it will be equals to 4, and then we said close bracket, and then to the power M. Our M here is equals to 4. So here it will be 4, then divided by our N. Our N here we said it is 52. So here we said divided by 52, then minus what? -1, and then here we close our bracket. So our interest rate must be expressed as a percentage. So after everything here, we will be having a decimal. So to convert it to a percentage, we must have to multiply by what? By 100. So after computing everything here, we have to multiply by 100 to express it as a percentage. So let us now go to our HP financial calculator and punch in the given variables. So we must always start by clearing our memory. I hope at this stage you are now acquainted about clearing the memory. So if we have a situation like this, the easiest way as well with HP financial calculator to save the time, we can start inside the brackets. And if we are starting inside the brackets, we must always start by the fraction. So we shall start inside the small brackets, then we extend to the bigger bracket. So we have to finish everything inside the brackets before we multiply by 52. And I also need to emphasize that we will only multiply by 100 after we have multiplied by 52. So we start inside the brackets, we simplify, then we multiply by 52, then after that we multiply by 100. So we shall start inside the small brackets. So inside our small brackets here, we are starting with the fraction. So we are saying 0.199, then we said divided by 4, and then we said equals to, then we say plus 1, and then we said equals to. So we now need to raise this amount to the power of 4 divided by 52. So to save time as well in the exam, we can make use of brackets as long as our power here is a fraction. We have to make use of brackets. So our brackets here, they are in orange. Here we have open bracket, and then here we have close what? Bracket. So to access everything in orange, we must start by saying down what? Down arrow. Then after that as well, we need our power what? Our power sign. So our power sign here is on the multiplication sign, and it is also in orange. Our power sign, that one is say y to the power of x, is on the multiplication sign, and it is in orange. So to access that one as well, we have to start by saying down arrow. So once we get here, we need to say down arrow, then we press to the power of. So once we get there, we have to say down arrow, then we press to the power what? Y over x. Then after that, we can now punch in 4 divided by 52. So let us say down arrow, then we press to the power of. Then since we are having a power which is a fraction, we make use of brackets. So we shall start with our open bracket here, but our open bracket here is in orange. So we'll say down arrow, and then we said open bracket. So our bracket is open, then we said 4 divided by 52. And then we need now to close our bracket. So we are saying down arrow, then here we said close bracket. Then after that we said equals to. And then after that we are now subtracting this what? This minus 1. So this what we have on the screen is this part only. Then we are now saying minus 1. So we are saying minus 1, and then we said equals to. Then after that we now need to multiply by 52. So we'll be saying multiply by 52, and then we said equals to. Then after that we can now multiply by 100. So to express it as a percentage, we said multiply by 100, and then we said equals to. So we have 19.45. So to 2 decimal places we'll be having 19.4. And then here we can have a look on 7. 7 is above 5. So 7 can change 5 to become what? 6. So it will be 19.46%. So this will be our JN, or our weekly compounded rate. So that is how we do. So our correct option would be option number 2. So that formula will be given in the exam. What is very important is to know how to interpret the formula. So let's go to question number question number 7. So question number 7, Jimmy begins to save for a deposit on a new car. He deposits 875 rands at the end of each month into a fund that earns 11.5 interest per year, compounded monthly. The amount that Jimmy accumulates in his fund at the end of 7 years is, let me read again, Jimmy begins to save for a deposit on a new car. He deposits 875 rands at the end of each month into a fund that earns 11.5% interest per year, compounded monthly. The amount that Jimmy accumulates in his fund at the end of 7 years is. So what are we required to calculate? They require us to calculate the amount that will be in the fund of Jimmy at the end of 7 years. So we are saying 7 years from now, or 7 years from the date on which Jimmy has started to make the monthly deposits. So it means we are required to calculate the future value. The amount that will be in the account of Jimmy after 7 years will be our future value. So the question now is, how are we going to calculate the future value? So the first thing, let us determine what are we required to calculate. Then after that, we need to ask ourselves a question, how are we going to calculate it? So here we are required to calculate our future value. So if you still remember, I also emphasized from another question where I said we need to differentiate between the investment or deposit of a single amount and the deposit or investment of a series of amounts. In this case, Jimmy didn't deposit 875 at the beginning and left it there without adding other deposits. Jimmy will be depositing 875 at the end of each month. At the end of each month, he will be depositing 875. So if we have a situation like this, we are no longer dealing with a single amount where you just deposited a certain amount and then no withdrawals or no additional deposits which you have made. You just deposited a single amount and you left it You left it there. But the scenario which we are having here is a situation where at the end of each and every month, you will be depositing a certain amount in your investment account. So it means we have a series of equal payments. So before we actually answer the question, let me start by saying in financial mathematics, if we have a series of equal payments, we have a series of equal payments, made over a series of equal payments made over equal intervals, for a specified period of time or indefinitely So in financial mathematics, if we have a series of equal payments made over equal intervals for a specified period of time or indefinitely, we are introducing the concept of an annuity. So in this case, we are having what do we call an annuity, because we are having a series of equal payments. Jimmy is depositing $8.75 each and every month. So it means we are having a series of equal payments. Our equal payments here, it will be $875 made over equal intervals. So here we are having $8.75 every month. So it means our equal intervals here refers to the 2 months, but it does not mean that equal intervals can only be months. They can be days, they can be quarters, they can be weeks, they can be yearly as well. So it means here we are having equal intervals. Then for a specified period of time, so here Jimmy will be depositing for a period of 7 years. So it means we are having a specified period of time. And then here I said or indefinitely. So we also have annuities that continue forever. You will be depositing a certain amount forever, meaning to say that the time in years will not be given. So as we go, we shall also cover an annuity where payments are made indefinitely. So in this case, we are having an annuity, and an annuity can be defined as a series of equal payments made over equal intervals. And then before we actually go to the question, for the purpose of this module, we have 2 types of annuities which they normally ask in the in the exam. We have 2 types of annuities, and then the criteria which we use to differentiate between these 2 types of annuities is whether the payment is made at the beginning of the equal intervals or whether the payment will be made at the end of the equal intervals. So if I'm saying payment is the same as as a deposit. If you are also receiving an equal amount from your investment account, we will also call it a payment. So we have 2 types of annuity. The first one which we have here is our ordinary. We have ordinary annuity, and then the second one which we have here is our annuity due. So we have annuity due, and both of these, they are referred to as annuities certain. So we have annuities certain. So both of these, ordinary annuity and annuity due, they fall under a category of annuities which we call annuities certain. So we have to differentiate between an ordinary annuity and an annuity due, because that differentiation is very, very important. So we shall start with our ordinary annuity. And I emphasize that the criteria which we use to differentiate between these 2 is whether the payment is made at the beginning of the equal intervals or the payment will be made at the end of the equal intervals. So with an ordinary annuity, the payments are made at the at the end of equal intervals. So it means with our ordinary annuity, the payment will be made at the end of equal intervals, and then with our annuity due, the payment will be made at the beginning of equal interval. So we have beginning of equal intervals. So with our annuity due, our payments will be made at the beginning of equal interval. So that is how do we differentiate between annuity due and ordinary annuity. So this one, end of equal intervals, is ordinary annuity. Then annuity due payments are made at the beginning of equal intervals. So that is how do we differentiate. So from the question itself, we need to determine whether are we working with an ordinary annuity or we are working with an annuity due. So one tip which I want to give you for exam purposes or for the purpose of this module, if the question is not clear or if the question is not specific about whether the payment is made at the beginning or the payment is made at the end, the assumption is that the payments are made at the end of equal intervals. For the purpose of this module, if the question is not clear or if the question is not specific about when the payments are being made, then we assume that the payments are made at the end of the equal intervals. And then the other important thing as well, our calculators are designed to work in the end mode. So every time we are working on our calculator, the default mode which we use is our end mode. So if it can happen that the annuity in question is an annuity due, then we have to put our calculators in beginning mode. So for the purpose of this question, since they specified at the end of each month, then we are working in end mode. But as we go, we shall also meet a situation where the payments are made at the beginning. There will be no too much things to add there, but we need to change from the end mode to the beginning mode. So when we get that question, we'll cover it as well. So in this case, we are dealing with an ordinary annuity. And then before we actually go to the question, if you still remember under compound interest, we said that we need 4 variables to determine the missing 50 variable. And I list these variables. We said we have future value, and we also have present value. We have 1 over YR. We also have P over YR, and we also have our N, where our FV is future value, PV is present value, 1 over YR is our interest rate, P over YR, number of times interest is compounded per annum, and then N, we said if interest is compounded more than once per annum, then our N will be number of compounding periods per annum, which is P over what? P over YR. Then we multiply by the number of what? By the number of years. If you still remember, I listed these variables. But since we are dealing with a new concept of an annuity, we have to add another variable, because if you still remember, we defined an annuity as a series of equal payments. So as long as we have a payment, we are having an annuity. So we have to introduce another variable which we call PMT. And on our HP calculator, our PMT is what is here. So here we have our PMT. So we have future value, present value, 1 over YR, P over YR, N here, and PMT. So here we are now having 6 variables. So the tip or technique which I want to emphasize is that by having 6 variables here, it does not mean that the variable to be calculated will be the 60 what? The 60 variable. As long as we are not touching bonds, the missing variable to be calculated will be always the 50 variable. Whether we are under compound interest of a single amount or we are having compound of equal payments, we always need 4 variables to determine the missing 50 variable. So by having 6 variables, it does not mean that we need 5 variables to determine the missing 60 variable. And then the other important thing, if you still remember, I said that present value is always entered as negative. And then I need to introduce another important concept as well. Before we start to speak of bonds, PMT is always what? PMT is always entered as negative. PMT is always entered as what? As negative. But here I need you to get it clear. Present value is always entered as what? As negative. PMT is always entered as what? As negative, as long as we are not talking of bonds. When we are dealing with the bonds, then we have to adjust somewhere. So when we are covering bonds, we have to adjust. So when we get there, I'll show you how do we do the adjustment. So PMT is always entered as negative. But if we have present value and PMT in the same calculation, or we have present value and PMT as our variables to calculate the missing 50 variable, we will enter PMT as positive. If we have present value and PMT as our variables to calculate the missing 50 variable, we have to enter PMT as positive. So it means before we start to speak of bonds, PMT can only be entered as positive if we have present value as one of our variables to calculate the missing 50 variable. So that is how we do. So let us now go back to our question. So the first thing here is to determine what we are required to calculate. So the amount that Jimmy accumulates in his fund at the end of 7 years is. So at the end of 7 years, the amount that will be in the account of Jimmy will be our future value. So it means the missing 50 variable here which we need to calculate is our future value. So it means here future what value is our missing 50 what is our 50 missing 50 variable. So our future value is our missing 50 variable. So we need the 4 variables here so that we can calculate our missing 50 variable. So very important as well. So Jimmy begins to save for a deposit on a new car. He deposits 875 at the end of each month. So the amount which Jimmy will be depositing is our PM what is our PMT. So that will be our payment. So we'll start by saying 875. And then I think here we saw that we are not having any present what? Any present value. We are not given present value. So it means our PMT, we will enter it as negative. So it means we have to say 875 plus or minus, then we press PMT. So this one is our first variable. And they said at the end of each month, we're into a fund that earns 11.5 interest per year. So our interest rate is 11.5, which is our second variable as well. So which is our 1 over YR. So we are saying 11.5. We said we enter it as it is because we are using a financial calculator. Then we press 1 over YR, and then compounded monthly. So interest is compounded monthly. So it means we need P over YR. The number of times interest is compounded per annum. So if interest is compounded monthly, so it means interest is compounded or calculated 12 times per annum. So it will be 12, then down arrow, then we press P over YR. Then the last thing to determine here is our N. So if you still remember, we said that if interest is compounded more than once per annum, then our N will be number of compounding periods per annum, which is 12. Then we said multiply by the number of years. So here they said 7 years. So it means we are multiplying by 7. So let us go to our calculator here, and then we'll start by clearing our memory, and then let us calculate our N, which is 12, and then we said multiply by 7, and then we said is equals to, so our N here is 81, is 84. So we are now having 1, 2, 3, 4. So we are having 4 variables. So we can now calculate our missing one. So since we need future value, then here we said press what? Here we said press future value. Then we have to press our future value. So let us go to our HP financial calculator. So here we start by clearing our memory. Then we said 875. Then since it is negative, we have to press plus or minus here. So plus or minus. So we are now having a negative here. Then we press our PMT. PMT is there. Then we said 11.5, and then we press 1 over YR. 1 over YR is there. Then here we said 12, then we press down arrow, then here we press P over YR, and then we said 84, and then we press our N. So then we said press what? Future value. So our future value is here, so we press our future value, and then we have 112,134.53. So the amount after 7 years in the account will be 112. So since it is money, we express to 2 decimal places. So we have 112, 134.53. So these 5 here can change 2 to become what? 3. So we're having 112, 134.53. So that is how we do. So here our correct option will be option number 4. So that is how we do. So as we go, we shall cover an annuity due as well. So let's go to question number 8. So question number 8 says Jetty will be paying back a loan by means of payments of 25,000 at the beginning of every 2 months for 6 years. If an interest rate of 7.5% per year compounded every 2 months is applicable, the present value of the loan is. So let me read again. Jetty will be paying back a loan by means of payments of 25,000 rands at the beginning of every 2 months for 6 years. If an interest rate of 7.5% per year compounded every 2 months is applicable, the present value of the loan is. So what are we required to calculate? So the question here is clear. The question is specific. The question says the present value of the loan is. So we are required to calculate the present value. So in the exam as well, that will be the first thing which you have to do. Once you have determined the variable to be calculated, then we are done. So in this case, we are required to calculate the present value. Then the second question is how. How are we going to calculate our present value? You can see here that they never measured anything to do with simple interest. They never measured anything to do with simple what? Simple discount. So we will go back to the question. And then here they said JT will be paying back a loan by means of payments of 25,000 at the beginning of every 2 months. Payments of 25,000 at the beginning of every 2 months. Are you seeing as well that they brought back the concept of an annuity? 25,000 paid at the beginning of every 2 months, meaning to say at the beginning of each and every 2 months, JT will be paying 25,000. So it means here we also have an annuity, which is a series of equal payments made over equal intervals. So we are having an annuity. So once we determine that we are having an annuity and we are going to use the annuity model, the third question to ask ourselves is that what type of annuity do we have? If you still remember, I differentiated between an ordinary annuity and an annuity due. And I said that with an ordinary annuity, the equal payments are made at the end of equal intervals. And with an annuity due, the payments are made at the beginning. So we need to determine here whether we are dealing with an annuity due or we are dealing with an ordinary annuity. So here they clearly indicated at the beginning. So it means payments are made at the beginning of each and every second month. So it means we are having an annuity due. So it means here we are having an annuity due. So once we determine that we are having an annuity due, we can use our financial calculators, but we have to put our financial calculators into the beginning mode. We have to put our HP financial calculator into the beginning mode. So if we have a look here, we are having BEG. BEG here in orange stands for beginning. And then here we have END as well. So it's BEG/END. So BEG stands for beginning and then END stands for end. But our calculators are designed to work in the end mode every time. But if we determine that we are dealing with an annuity due, we have to put our calculator in beginning mode. So since beginning here is in orange, it means we have to start by pressing our down arrow. So we have to put our calculator in beginning mode. So how do we put our calculator in beginning mode? To put in BG what mode, we simply said down arrow and then we press what? BEG. Down arrow, then we press BEG. Then our calculator, it will be in beginning mode. So here let us start by clearing our memory. Once we clear our memory, then here we'll say down arrow, then we press BEG. So I think you are seeing now on the display screen, we are now having BEG, meaning to say that we are working in beginning mode. So once we put our calculator in beginning mode, then we are done. The concepts which we discussed on the previous question will also apply to this question. If we are having our annuity, the variable to be determined, or the variable which the question requires us to calculate, will be the missing 50 variable. So it means we have to determine our missing 50 variable. So the question here says the present value of the loan. So it means our present value of the loan is our missing 50 variable. So here we leave space, and then here we have present value as our missing as our missing 50 variable. Let me use V for variable. So our present value is our missing 50 variable. So let us now go back to determine our 4 variables. So JT will be paying back a loan by means of payments of 25,000. So payment, we said, is PMT. So we'll be having our 25,000. And here what we are required to calculate is present value. So it means we don't have present value here as one of our variables. So it means PMT, it will be entered as what? As negative. Then here we press our PMT. And then at the beginning of every 2 months for 6 years. If an interest rate of 7.5% per year, so it means our interest rate here is 7.5. You remember that we said we enter it as it is, so it will be 7.5, and then here we use 1 over YR per year, compounded every 2 months. So interest is compounded every 2 months, or we can say after every 2 months interest is compounded, and we need the number of times interest is compounded per annum. So if interest is compounded every 2 months, then it means interest, it will be compounded 6 times per annum. So it will be 6. Then we said down arrow, and then here we have P over YR. So here we are now having 3 variables, and we are left with our 40 variable. Automatically here it will be our N. And if you still remember, I emphasized that if interest is compounded more than once per annum, our N is no longer the number of years, but it will be the total compounding periods for the whole investment period. So our N, it will be number of compounding periods per annum multiplied by the number of years. So here they said of every 2 months for 6 years. So it means our number of years here is what? Is 6. So it will be 6 multiplied by 6. Then here we do have 36 as our N. So we are now having 4 variables. Then here we can now say press what? Press present value. Once we entered all the 4 variables, then we can now press our present value. So let us go to our HP calculator. Here we have already cleared our memory. So we start by saying 25,000, and then plus or minus, then we have PMT, then we have 7.5, and then we press 1 over YR. Then here we have 6, and then we said down arrow, then we press P over YR. And then here we have 36, and then we press N. then we already entered our 4 variables, and what we need is present value. So our present value is here, then we press our present value. So our present value, it will be 730,196. So we have 730,196.46. 5 can change 5 to become 6. So that is how we do. Put your calculator in beginning mode. So that is how we do. So our correct option will be option number 4. And then another tip which I want to share with you, the questions which cover beginning mode, they are not too much. We might have 1 or 2 questions for the whole exam paper. So once you finished the question which you used the beginning mode, please let us remove our calculators in beginning mode. Because if we use beginning mode instead of end mode, then we get an incorrect answer. So the tip which I want to share with you is that once you are done with your beginning mode, let us remove our calculator in beginning mode. So to remove from beginning mode, we just press down arrow, and then here we press end mode to put our calculator in the end mode. So let us remove our calculator. But to remove it, we start by clearing our memory. So we said clear all. So we cleared our memory, then we said down arrow, and then here we press our our end mode. So it means here we are no longer having anything. So the beginning has disappeared. So we are now working in end mode. So it is very, very important to remove your calculator from the beginning mode once you are done with the question which requires you to use the beginning mode. So let's go to question number 9. So question number 9 says, Paulina took out an endowment policy that will pay out in 15 years time. Her first annual payment is 8,400, whereafter it increases yearly by 2,100. The applicable yearly interest rate is 12.6% per year, compounded yearly. The amount to the nearest rand that Paulina can expect to receive after 15 years is the amount to the nearest rand that Paulina can expect to receive after 15 years is. So the first thing as well, what are we required to calculate? So here we are required to calculate the amount that Paulina will receive after 15 years. The amount that Paulina will receive after 15 years. So it means here we are required to calculate our future value or the sum accumulated. So we are required to calculate the future value. And then the second question now is, how are we going to calculate it? So to determine how to calculate it, we need to go back to the question. But now we know that we are required to calculate the future value. So Paulina took out an endowment policy that will pay out in 15 years time. So 15 years from now. Her first annual payment. So here we are given first annual payment, meaning to say the first payment which was made is 8,400. The first annual payment is 8,400. Whereafter it increases yearly by 2,100. Paulina started by depositing 8,500 into account, and after 1 year or whereafter it increases yearly by 2,100. Meaning to say that Paulina started by depositing 8,400, and each and every year the amount that Paulina will be depositing in her account will increase by 2,100. Meaning to say, by each and every deposit, the amount that Paulina will be depositing will be increasing by 2,100. So from those facts alone, we can determine which model are we going to use. So let me start by saying that here they started with a payment, and as long as we are having payment or payments, we are having an annuity. As long as they are saying payment, we are having an annuity. And if you still remember, under our annuities, we differentiate between an ordinary annuity and an annuity due. But the payments which were being made, they were equal. We never made anything to do with an increasing payment. Meaning to say that each and every payment which was being made was the same. Meaning to say we were not having an increasing an increasing payment. But on question number 9, we are now having the payments which are increasing by an equal amount each and every year. So if we have such a situation, we are introducing the increasing annuity. So we are still under annuities, but we are now introducing what we call increasing annuities. You are making a series of payments into a particular account, but these payments which you are making, they are not equal, but they are increasing by the same amount each and every year, or by each and every deposit. So if we are having such a situation, we are introducing the concept of an increasing annuity. So unfortunately, with an increasing annuity, we cannot use our financial calculators, but we can only use a formula. So fortunately, the formula will be also given in the exam. So I want you to make a point that if we are having an increasing annuity, we cannot use our financial calculators, but we have to resort to a formula. But fortunately, the formula will be given in the exam. So under an increasing annuity, we only have one main formula. So this main formula is S is equals to, then here we said open bracket, and then we said R, and then we said plus, and then here we said Q divided by I, then here we said close our bracket, and then here we said S, which is small s. Let me use a small, this one is small s, this one is capital letter S, this one is small s, and then angle N at what? At I, and then we said minus Q N over what? Over I. So in the exam, if you see a formula like this, is for calculating the future value of an increasing annuity. So let us interpret the variables. S here is our future what? Future value. Future value and the sum accumulated are the same. So we can either use FV or we can use what S. So under formulas we normally use S, but on the financial calculator we use FV, but they are the same. So our S here is our future value, and then our R is the first payment. R is our first what? First payment. So it's very important to know that R is our first payment. And then our Q here, Q is the amount of the increase. So they said each and every payment will increase by 2,100. So our Q here is the payment increase. So here we have, let me say, annual payment increase. So here we have our annual payment increase. If payments are made every month, then it will be our monthly payment increase. If payments are made every quarter, then it will be our quarterly payment increase. So here we are having annual, so we are having annual payment increase, which is our Q. And our I here is our interest rate as a decimal, because we are using a formula. So as long as we are using a formula, then our interest rate must be expressed as a decimal. So I is interest rate as a decimal, interest rate as a decimal. And then this one, I'll come back to it. I'll come back to this one. Then here we already have Q, so it means we are done with the Q is our annual payment increase. Here we are done with I, our I, interest rate as a decimal. And then our N here is the number of years, and there is the number of what? Number of years. Our N is the number of years. So we have R, which is our first payment. Q is the payment increase. I, interest rate as a decimal. Then N is the number of years. So I said that I'll come back to this one. So this one which we have is the future value interest factor of an ordinary annuity. So in this case, I hope you saw that they said the first annual payment is 8,400, and whereafter it increases yearly by 2,100, and they never specify whether payment is made at the beginning or at the end of the period. So it means here the assumption is that payment is made at the end of the period. And a tip which I can share with you here is that under this increasing annuity, for the purpose of this module, we don't have beginning mode, or we don't have a situation where the payments are made at the beginning of each and every period, but we are having at the end of each and every period. That is why our main formula here have the future value interest factor of an annuity due. So if we are saying S and then angle NHI, this one is the interest factor. This one is the interest factor of ordinary annuity. So it is the interest factor, or we can say the future value interest factor of ordinary annuity. So that is how do we interpret. So how do we read this one? We say the S angle N at I. So for the purpose of this module, they will give us this future value interest factor this way, but we cannot use it the way it is given here, or I can say we will not be able to use it directly as it is. We have to change it to another format. So we have to change this one to another format. So let me write there on on top. So the future value interest factor of an ordinary annuity, which is S angle NHI, we cannot use it as it is, but we have to expand it to become 1 plus I to the power n minus 1, then everything divided by what? Divided by I. So this one must be converted to this what? To this format. Our n will remain the number of years. Our I, it will remain as our interest rate as a what? As a decimal. So this one, so for notes purposes, I can say S angle NHI can be written as what? As this. So it means we have to convert this one to this what? To this format. So that is how do we interpret the variables of an increasing annuity. So once we interpret them, then we already have our formula, which will be also given in the exam. Then we can now substitute the given variables. So let us substitute. So here we said, so we are now substituting in this formula. So our future value is equals to, then here we open our bracket. So we said R is our first what? Payment. So our first payment here is 8,400. So it means we are starting here with 8,400. Then we said plus. And we said our I here, our Q here is the annual payment increase. So our Q here is our 2,100. So we are saying 2,100 divided by I, where I is the interest rate as a decimal. So our interest rate here is 12.6. So 12.6 percent to a decimal, we are simply dividing by 100, and then we will get 0.1260, and then here we said close our what? We have to close our bracket, and then from there we are going to, so because of space I'll try to wrap there, so it means we shall extend up to this side. So after that we are now entering our S angle n at what? At I, which is what? Which is this one. So it means here we are opening our bracket here, then here we are saying 1 plus. Our I here is the simple interest rate as a decimal, which is 0.126 what? 0. Then we say to the power of what? To the power of n, where n is our number of years. So our n here is the number of years. So here they said after 15 years. So our n here is to the power what? To the power 15. Then after that we said minus 1, and then we close that big bracket. Then we say divided by. Then our I here is our 0.1260. Then after that, on our formula, we were saying that minus. So this is the first part of the formula. Then we are saying minus. If you still remember, we said minus Qn over what? Over I. So from this one, we need to subtract Qn over I. So our Q, we said, is 2,100 multiplied by n, which is what? Which is 50 divided by I as a decimal, 0.126 what? 260. So here I can put brackets so that we know that this is one thing. So that is how do we substitute our variables. Then we can now what? We can now simplify. So it means we are saying this one minus what? Minus this one. So to save time in the exam, since we don't need to write too much on the paper, if we can play around our calculator so that we can save time in the exam. So the tip which I want to give you when we are having a situation like this, we can start by calculating this one. We calculate this one and then we write it down. Once we write it down, we can jump the calculation of this one, because this one, it will give us a lot of commas. So what do we do? Once we calculate this one, we write it down, and then we calculate what? We calculate this one, and then we write it what? We write it down. Then from there, we calculate this one. Once we calculate this one we don't write it down, because we already have this one. So once we get this one in our calculator, we multiply by this one, because this one is already written down. Then after that, we said minus this one, because it is also already written down. That time, that way, will save time in the exam. So let us go to our HP calculator. I hope you already cleared the memory on your side. So we are starting by this one, and if you still remember, I said as long as we have a fraction inside the brackets, let us start by the fraction. So we are saying 2100 divided by that one, then we said plus 8400. So we said 2100, then we said divided by 0.1260, and then we said equals to. Then after that, we are saying plus, and then we have 8,400, and then we said equals to. So this is this part alone, so we can write it down. So here we can write it as our 25,066 point. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we only round the final answer. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then there we have 7. So this one we already we already have. Then this one we can wait. So we can do this this one, and we also write it down. So this one is this amount. So let us go to this one. So in this case, we start by saying 2100 multiplied by 15, then we divide by that one. So here we can clear our memory. Then we said that 2100, then we said multiply by 15, and then we said equals to. Then after that, we now said divided by 0.1260, and then we said equals to. So this one which we are subtracting gave us 250,000. So we are having 250,000 is what is this one. So this one we calculated, and we get what? This one. And then this one here which we are subtracting, we get 250,000. So we now need to calculate this one. Once we calculate this one, to save time, we don't write it down. We quickly multiply it by this one, then we subtract what? 250,000. So here we'll be subtracting 250,000. So let us clear our memory as well. So here let us start inside the brackets, 1 plus this one. So we are saying 1 plus our 0.1260, and then we said equals to. So we are having this one, and we are raising it to the power of 15. So if you still remember, we said our power sign is on the multiplication sign, and it is in orange. So to access everything in orange, we must start by saying down arrow. So here we need to say down arrow, then we press y to the power of x. Then after that, we press our 15. So here we are saying down arrow, then we press y to the power x. So after that, we press our 15, and then here we said equals to. Then we are subtracting that 1. So we are saying minus 1 and then we said equals to, then we said divided by 0.1260, and then we said equals to. So it means this part here inside the brackets give us 39.129. So we are now saying 39.129 multiplied by this one. So this one, there's no need to write it down. So it means we are saying this one, which we already have, multiplied by this one, which is this one. And see what do we get. So we are saying what we already have there. We are now saying multiply by 25. So it's 25, and then we have 0.666, then 0.6666. I think we have 7 there, and then we said equals to. So we are now subtracting this part, which is our 250,000. So we are now saying minus 250,000, then we said equals to. So it means after 15 years, the amount which Paulina will be having, it will be 730,840 to the, here they say to the nearest rand. So to the nearest rand, we are rounding to the nearest whole number. So here we have 0.5. So 5 can change 0 to become 1. So it means there we'll be having 84841. Since they say to the nearest what? To the nearest rand. So to the nearest rand means to the nearest whole number. So it means the accumulated amount, which will be 730,841. So that is how we do. So our correct option here, it will be option number 5. So in the exam, as long as they give you an annuity and they said it is increasing annual for the purpose of this module, and increasing annuities, I never saw monthly payments, weekly or quarterly payments. It will be always what? Annual payments, to make life easy on your side. So that is how we do with an increasing annuity. So let us go to question number 10. So in this video we shall end on question number 10, then question 11 to 20 will cover in another video. We are trying to make them short. So questions 10, 11 and 12 are based on the following situation. And then pedal a lot sells bicycles. The following table represents the selling price of a bicycle, which is X. So the selling price per bicycle is X in rand, and the number of bicycles sold at that price Y. So questions 10, 11 and 12 are based on the following situation. So pedal a lot sells bicycles. The following table represents the selling price of a bicycle in rand and the number of bicycles sold at that price. So here we are having X. X is our selling price per bicycle, and Y represents the number of bicycles sold at that price. So let's go to question number 10. So question number 10 says the standard deviation for the number of bicycles sold is. The standard deviation for the number of bicycles sold is. So numbers of bicycles sold are represented by what? By Y, and the question requires us to calculate the standard deviation of the number of bicycles sold. So we need to determine the standard deviation of the number of bicycles sold. That is what we are required to calculate. Then the question now is, how are we going to calculate our standard deviation? So let me start by defining standard deviation. So standard deviation simply measures the degree of variability around the mean or around the average. In grade 3, I hope we learned consumer arithmetics. We were learning about the average, which we can also call the what? The mean. So the standard deviation measures the degree of variability of outcomes around the average or around the mean. So fortunately, with our HP financial calculator, we can calculate standard deviation directly. So I want to write in your notebook as well that with HP financial calculator we can calculate our standard deviation. So our standard deviation on question number 10 is only on the number of bicycles sold. So let us go to our HP financial calculator, then I'll explain a little bit, then we come back to our question. So the first thing here, we clear our we clear our memory. So the variable which we need to determine is our standard deviation. On our financial calculator, standard deviation is SX. Standard deviation is on the 8 button and it is in orange. Our standard deviation is S what? Is SX. Meaning to say that once we entered the other variables, then we have to press what? SX. But since our SX is in orange, we have to press down arrow, or we must make use of our down arrow. So our standard deviation is SX. So since it is in orange, we make use of the down arrow. So the question now is, how are we going to enter the given variables? So since they are saying the standard deviation for the numbers of bicycles sold, they said numbers of bicycles sold are represented by what? By Y. So we are going to use our what? Our Y. If they were saying standard deviation for the price, then we can use our what? Our X. So to enter the Y variables, we use what? We use summation. I think you are seeing this one here, which is in white, which they are saying what? This like an E and they put a T. In mathematics, we call it the sum of, or the summation of. So we use this one to end our what? Our variables. So since our summation is in white, we don't use down arrow. We just press our summation once we enter the variable. So you might be wondering, how do we use our summation? So let us go and I will show you practically. So the first thing is to have our variables on board before we touch our financial calculator. So since we are focusing on the number of bicycles sold, so we are dealing with our Y. So we are starting on the first variable, which we say which is 19. So here we say 19, and then we press what? Summation. Then we go to 15. Here we press 15, and then we press what? Summation. And then we go to 7, and then we press what? Summation. And then we go to 5, and then we press what? Summation. Our calculator must show us that we have entered 4 variables. Once we enter the last variable, which is 5, and is our fourth variable or outcome, the calculator will show us 4, meaning to say we have entered 4 variables. Then after that, we just say down arrow and then we press what? SX. That will be our standard deviation. So we can go to our financial calculator. I hope that you already cleared the memory on your side. So here we said 19. So we have 19 and then we press this this summation. I think you are seeing that your calculator screen is saying 1, meaning to say that we have entered the first variable or outcome. Then we go to 15 here and then we also press summation, and your calculator is showing number 2, meaning to say we have entered the second variable. Then here we said 7 and then we press summation. Our calculator will show what? 3 here to indicate that we have entered the third variable, and then from there we said 5 and then we press what? Summation. Our calculator is showing 4. So that is how we do. So now we need to determine SX. So XX is here on 8, but it is in what? In orange. So we must start by saying down arrow and then we press SX. So our SX there is 6.6. We can check on our answer whether 2 decimal place or 1 decimal place. So our answers here on question number 10, there are 2 decimal places. So we can also express to 2 decimal places. So we have 6.6. So here we have 8. 8 can change 0 to become what? To become 1. So we'll be having 6.61. So it means our standard deviation for the number of bicycles sold, it will be 6.61. So our correct option is option number 3. So that is how we do. So we shall continue with question 11 up to 20 in another video. Here we are ending on question number 10. Thank you very much.